The little boy who walks just 2 years ago still thinks of his grandfather. He stares down his powerful brother, realizing that despite his own training, he will never reach the top spot in the clan and will remain just another ordinary guy nobody cares about. That's why he has to rack his brain to find a way to live a comfortable life where he can get food without working. He's just going to leave this family behind. I'm thinking that even if I were the best genius in the world, suddenly smelling like rotten garbage is enough to make me feel terrible right now, before he throws up his whole tantrum. It's hard to believe the boy was so different from anyone else. Maybe even more than that, he keeps the memories of what happened in that old world alive inside his head. Dezo, the youngest and most powerful leader of the Namkong clan, truly lacks any real skills or talents. He got kicked out of the clan like a pile of trash nobody cared about anymore. Chung's eyes widened as his hand rested against the steaming glass, feeling suddenly like he knew the old man from 1,000 years ago. He began babbling on how he could finally come back to the past after sharing drinks, but nobody believed him that night, even as he stumbled upon a thief in his walk. Dezo waited for the elders and saw something strange start glowing on the sheet he held. Then the man who struck him at once vanished in a thin air, leaving only the glowing paper behind. The old man made a secret move with his hand before he even took the bag off his shoulder. His mind flickered as he woke up, and suddenly his body was soft and white with tiny fingers. The room felt like home, but it wasn't quite there anymore. It had been 3 years since Dezo was his own child, and now he walked in the main hall where valuable items were always being displayed. His face began to show a greedy smile, as if he knew exactly what they held, making him wonder how much they truly were worth. To execute his plan to escape the clan, he must continuously hoard wealth, build a 4-sided cottage, marry 2 or 3 beauty queens or runners-up. Why struggle as a martial artist? 2 years passed, and Doise was still secretly stealing his father's prized vase to sell. The 8 servant girls thought he was mischievous and tried to stop him, but then he told them to go help him with the task. He even told her not to worry. My father, the strongest martial artist, is only obsessed with martial arts. He won't pay attention to such trivial matters. He didn't know that all his actions had been discovered by his father. Soon, Dezo turned 8 years old. He was quite proud of having cleaned out his father's treasure. The Blood Dragon guards were also present to escort him to his family home. This time he was here for the clan to evaluate his potential. Dezo thought to himself that he had to give them a painful surprise. If he hadn't shown any talent, Dasso wouldn't have forced him into martial arts training. Instead, the moment he spotted his father, the world's #1 martial god, his heart hammered in a panic that made his body tremble uncontrollably. Fortunately, he fled immediately after Dasso greeted him. My 3 genius brothers are right here too. This guy is acting all cute again, and I'm not trying to compete for the job. Okay, let's start by punching and kicking to get out of your way. But we need to be careful, because after a fun party ends up being a tough aptitude test for the Nam Kong family that includes lifting heavy steel weights. He swung through the air with a 5-kilogram load and tried to snatch it up from his young master's grasp. The older man could pull 1,000 pounds effortlessly, but 2 of the younger ones managed only 20 kilos each before hitting the ceiling. Even when he lifted a 50-kilogram weight, the whole group stayed flat-footed because they couldn't lift anything more than their own capacity. Truly useless in the end. Dezo has carefully planned to make everyone feel like they're losing their minds, forcing a complete collapse before any one of them ever even catches their breath. Dezo is sprinting toward the end of the trail with no time to stretch, so he lets out an angry yell before stumbling and hitting the ground hard. The elders are absolutely stunned by his sudden loss of all usefulness, yet my heart breaks because I can no longer watch him anyway. It's that final test you've been waiting for. At this very moment, only the older brothers and their attendants are left standing there. He has to pretend to be completely incompetent so they won't notice how easily he can slip up and cause trouble. No one knows that his father is also watching him from a distance, but the old man is about to send out a stream of energy to calm his Danshin because he once practiced this technique for 25 years before. Of course, if he tries to use it in front of everyone right now, without thinking carefully, he might not be able to practice martial arts for another few years. Haha, what a smart plan. Suddenly, an unimaginably terrible pain strikes. No matter how long he stays in bed, the risk is too high for him to ever return as a warrior again. Then I will gradually recover and show them that I have no interest in martial arts. Suddenly, the family head has appeared here to take due for treatment. This makes the older brothers worry as well. Could it be that the father really likes the boy, but with his performance just now, all 3 abandon that thought? No matter how hard the boy tries, he cannot compete for the position of family head among them. The elder healer is also called over. He thinks carefully. The nursery where Dezo was has been under siege for 5 years. They thought young Master Dezo would not survive, but now he appears here healthy. Moreover, he has received the attention of the family head. Perhaps it is because of the late matriarch, the one the family head loved most, that he cannot abandon his own child. When Dezo wakes up, he feels no pain at all in his body. On the contrary, he feels full of energy. Clearly, your plan has failed. I should have woken up in a condition that requires special care for many years, and they said I would have to give up martial arts. Peanut, I need to come up with a new plan. Father's face suddenly became frightening. You have fun, but as my son, it's unacceptable that your blood is still in chaos. Dezo also thought carefully. Once upon a time, in my past life, I did not speak to my father at all. The father, who had no idea if his son was his own child, stared blankly as the doctor explained that his body is full of chaotic energy and could never reach the third rank unless he stopped practicing. When he tried to calm down, a tiny slip-up meant he'd lose his life entirely. His face turned completely blank just moments ago, yet he couldn't remember why or if he even said it aloud, only knowing both were blessed with heavenly martial talents that kept them from ever being two sons at once. He said this is the hardest thing in fighting because it needs to hold up against all heavenly strength at once. Yet as Doctor warned him, Dezo can't actually get enough power for such a powerful move yet. When he finally puts out his energy, it will break right through. He was so far away that at that moment, he couldn't really help anyone else. When he heard this, the guy looked downcast from the outside, but he was laughing all along from the inside. Later, his dad handed him over to help with an ordinary martial arts lesson. Everyone finds basic swordsmanship skills highly sought after and available to buy everywhere. He didn't need magic power to fight, because everything just went as planned, and Dezo made sure he slept soundly by reading a small manual before falling asleep. What was it full of nonsense phrases? The skills from the three realms feel completely fake. But since he wasn't sleepy yet, Dezo took out the sword and practiced a few moves. His father and the divine doctor were eating and drinking on the roof, panicking. This boy is dancing in the fan like that. I forgot Dezo didn't know when he had been practicing sword dancing all night long. That is the state of selflessness. A state that when reached at its peak according to fate, some people will find the answers they are seeking, and others will find a new path for themselves. Only his father knows that his son is beginning to embrace martial arts. What he had to toil and struggle for in his past life was merely that of a third-rate fighter, but now it is completely opposite. The feeling of comfortably wielding the sword brings unusual joy. The divine healer, Eli Han, also came the next day to check on his wounds. A normal person takes 4 months to recover, but this guy completely recovered after just 1 week. Could it be because of the fan dance the other day? After that, Dezo went to the 6th training hall, which belonged to the senior brothers with a number of days respectively exceeding training by 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. There are 2 ways to pass through the training hall. One is through the annual assessment. You've got to be part of the endless fights all along so you can win every single one. The way he watched those brilliant training fans make his heart jump a little bit. A guy took a nap and didn't even get up to tell his friend how many times he'd sharpened his own knives before sunset, because the other guy was bragging about swordplay while they lay in silence together. Don't think about what they don't know, for all the hardworking monsters in the woods actually have a very clear sense of their own lives. Dezo feels sick after reading about a terrible past that he wants to erase forever, so in the next big exam, he has to do a perfect no-no. 7 days later, Dezo's internal energy was climbing fast, but he knew it wouldn't finish until the next 1,000 years of his life. Haha, truly amazing. That day, Deputy Military Advisor Nam Gongjin stepped up and saw him. He's an 8-year-old genius who turned out to be the very youngest scholar ever. A soldier sent by military advisor Ilosu arrived just to play games without telling anyone about the serious rules inside. Suddenly, his scary eyes turned on the guys around him, and he asked if he wanted to crush all the world of martial arts with himself. He immediately found out that his senior brothers had all thrown him away, so he went straight into training hall to tell them Dezo would wipe them all clean. The peanut men were already in trouble, while this white-haired man also said, "Let me introduce the future master of the Nam family." That moment left him completely dead before anyone could wake him up. Now, when this guy woke up, he was just babbling. After being punched, his mind felt like it was spinning with new problems. He insisted there was a powerful force coming from somewhere inside that family's heads, and the divine god Eli had to pull back because the boy seemed too dangerous for anyone else. Diesel stood in the empty room and shook his head, not knowing that he couldn't fix his bad thoughts. The group was so focused on seeing how much strength the young master had that they instantly felt disappointed, but it turned out just a few basic sword moves were enough to end their hopes. His plan to fail was already moving along smoothly as he headed home for a feast, only to encounter Jack Ion right here, instead of leaving his plans behind. He told himself he would leave his Nam clan and avoid the disturbance, but then that same arrogant guy just said, Well, if you don't stop your masters, we have a common goal. Can our small place really stop you from dominating the martial arts world? Oh man, delusional for sure. Dezo realized that the guy was as crazy as he thought. That crazy revolutionary might have shine when things were chaotic, but here's not peace with his family. He even called himself his commander. No matter how much Dezo refused because that guy is too troublesome in the end, Dezo told him to wait a year. For months later, Dezo's progress was considered to have moved from being useless to becoming high-level useless because during this time, he only learned 3 basic sword techniques. It was exactly as planned when everyone laughed at Jack Ion for treating him like a lunatic, but only after he saw the 2 others trembling before him did he finally spare them and pack away his treasures with confidence. A bite of the tiny elixir made your mouth water and tasted like pure joy. He jumped in shock when someone gave him an unbelievable gift from Shaolin Temple to high nobility, asking maidens to join the fun without thinking it was too much. That person looked like he was actually a thief. Suddenly, his internal energy began to drain away before he could even register what happened next. As the whole group panicked for hours trying to master their skills, Diego finally let out a long sigh and tucked his hands into his pockets, feeling totally at ease as everything was set up perfectly. And so, he stepped into battle just to stop that southern house from rising again. The plan was laid out and ready for the storm to come. Dezo felt a wave of panic as she noticed the door was locked behind her. It was just a yearly test, but why were the students so eager to show up again? Then Jack Ion grabbed his enormous Ron banner and cheered on, causing everyone's attention to go wild. He yelled loudly at the southern house light, and it made Dezo feel embarrassed because he knew that person always teased him even more than the elders did. The elders explained there were 2 ways to decide. First, challenge any one of them in a fight, or else join a team according to your preference, but only once. The rules are already written for this tournament, yet a single disciple named Namkung Huan steps forward with wild confidence to challenge the Southern House leader. He believes his unique talent could change everything for the entire arena. In his past life, he fought hard and took down 100 guys on the battlefield alone. He's named Nam Lin Wan, a swordsman from the Southern House Merchant Alliance. The deputy leader said if he could hold it for 10 seconds, he'd let him join the guild's sword division. But taking those 10 seconds isn't easy. Old Man was lightning fast, but Han blocked him when he hit. Then Wan swung his powerful iron sword and used 3 moves. But with one quick swipe, the deputy leader just broke it. Still, he let go because he saw this kid have potential. Carefully polished, the sharp blade soon becomes the greatest weapon in history. Dezo stepped forward as the next contestant did too. A mysterious disciple stood before him. But the man who had been challenging him was actually a fool and lost his mind completely. The stage was finally full of noise and emotion, yet the performance had become unbearable by now. Young Master Yu turned cold, knowing the disciples were whispering that Jack Ion was a complete waste and that crazy 3 Tai had ruined everyone's lives. If you're shallow, just keep your mouth shut. Instead, go on blabbering so others can see how foolish you are. How dare you let your mouth wander in front of him like that? His father at this moment released a terrifying aura, calling out to the kids, "Why is it so dull?" There's not even a hint of interest. But the deputy strategist beside him began to stir the pot. Therefore, I have a suggestion for the Lord Commander. I want him to compete with his brothers right here. Everyone was shocked at that point. Dezo stared at his dantian, shattering with terror, as 3 brothers sprinted toward him, planning to slip away while his father's face remained too tense for fighting. Since they couldn't use internal energy anyway, the deputy strategist cheered happily. Dezo had given Diesel a pill full of 15 profound internal energies, but he was completely unharmed. Only the head of the Namkung family on the competition floor could handle it all. Dezo had spoken for the very first time to his 3 brothers, yet he refused to make any direct charge against them. The arena felt like it was about to explode. A loud bang hit hard, shattering the air and carving out a massive hole in the middle. Does the person who told me that look like they're going to get killed by me? Fortunately, Dezo managed to dodge a blow just in time. Otherwise, it would have been disastrous. Today, as I watch you act in your disciples' matches all over the place, I realized you had absolutely no interest in martial arts at all. Exactly. Those 3 handsome brothers thought he would go easy on him, but he actually struck even harder because his speed was too fast to dodge. Dezo could only use the 3-tied sword technique to block the blows. Although the heavy 3 brothers' blade was so formidable, he finally managed to stop it. This moment shocked everyone and made the brothers grow even angrier as they realized just now his 3rd brother had broken his ultimate skill with such a simple move. He frantically charged forward to attack, fearing for his own safety. Just wait, but then he discovered that using a clumsy sword technique was all he could do to defend himself. Die-hard blade slammed into the man, knocking him out of shape while his son tried to act like a hero before the fight even began. You thought you could trick him into giving up and run away, but his watch was already ticking. He had no choice at all when the third brother finally held him down. Did you even wonder what he was thinking about right then? He's determined to test Diego out of the gate. Your dad asked gently why your little brother isn't making any sound yet. The guy just seems to be fading away from the fight, leaving his sword out of play, as anyone might expect, which only makes him even more angry about losing to that powerful third brother. If you stay here today on, you won't even know who my true enemy is anymore. In this intense rematch, they're bringing real swords into play while also deploying 3 of their own core abilities. His heart is beating so hard he can't stop fighting because everyone in this world is fighting for the same thing. Before the fight begins, a danger looms over Dezo. If he lets it slide, he will be thrown onto the platform by both his hands and have to stand there staring at nothing but the third brother. Everyone screamed and cheered loudly as he swung with a loud command that sliced through like a blade of fire. Although not incredibly fast, there was no way to dodge his stormy blow. He had only the 3 skills of swordplay left to defend against it, and he could unleash a powerful combination of heavenly, earthly, and human skills in one strike. Both sides clashed wildly, shaking the entire audience. Dezo thought back to his previous life and felt a rush of energy. In this new life, would he really have to lose an arm just to be usable? No way. The whole room felt tense as the person on top of them suddenly glowed with an overwhelming, crushing power, making every single face look grave and unable to move forward any further. He reached out with his own hand and sliced the blade into pieces. He told everyone that only a handful of his inner power was needed to stop the sword from splitting further. You wouldn't get hurt like this unless you were actually the one who won, because when your 2 arms came back together, it was exactly what the other brothers needed to do after a fight ended. It turned out to be an incredible pass for a massive collection of martial arts treasures. After 3 days inside, you could literally count every book in 10,000 different books. And there are even huge gems hidden within that area. Some people actually see significant improvements when they enter this vast library. The fight scene ended with a sudden silence as the man stood up, but he couldn't move his mouth because everything was wrong. Oh no, that young master isn't even going in. You really want to live like a mouse who never leaves his hole? It will stay forever a coward hiding in your own shadow for all your life. That guy's mocking him and starts laughing hard. From here on out, it doesn't matter at all what you're doing. Even if you're still a mouse, nothing matters much. Most people are watching, so of course the cats will start acting. It's not about strength alone. You need a second choice because that's all you have left to choose in the dark. I was about to let this tiny punk go free when the storm turned violent, and he turned on me. Dezo got mad instantly, and that small punk ruined every single secret plan I'd built for you all. You just wanted to punch him hard, so everyone knows your real power is a little too big. Now his words are completely reasonable, but looking at his face, I still have to beat him up. At this point, the only option left is to learn martial arts to survive. Thinking back, when my elder brother got the family head's position, both second and third sons were recognized for their talents. So I decided to seriously compete there. That way, even if I fail, I can still enjoy that fragrance of flowers. To face the brothers, I need to reach peak foundation first. The longest time I have is 2 years, and the young master is in seclusion. During this period, he becomes someone unshakable by others. He had been fighting for so long that his body finally gave up all hope and turned into a terrifyingly strong monster, just like his old friend once did. In a vast library filled with martial arts manuals, a greedy boy named Jack Ion decides to sell some books for fortune. While his brothers once taught him about splitting consciousness into 2 parts to fight simultaneously, they now face the Nam Kong family elders who demand to know exactly what one received in battle for the minor head of the family. With their knights and heroes like them ready to confront this young master, Jack must find out just how much information he has hidden. That mysterious strategist is famous for being so smart because he thinks nobody can beat him, but his real boss in the army is actually a deputy who is ready to kill anyone who looks like Jack Ion. He ordered everyone immediately to gather at that massive library where 50 top experts are waiting, and they will report back every half hour exactly as you know them doing. The protagonist has lost everything because he thinks he's being chased from behind. Yet instead of running away, Dezo spent years studying the heart technique, but couldn't figure out what it meant. He had to tell a summary about how time began in that chaotic diagram, where chaos created a bipolar world and then yin and yang were born. Duo Chi is called duality ta Chi, and it started with him sitting down to use the great listening heart technique while his internal energy raced through his blood like a super fast train. If he tried to stop it, his vessels would burst. He only managed to feel what was happening by mixing the flavor of this technique in his own practice, effectively separating yin from yang. This guy did it easily, even forgetting to self-praise that he's a true genius. Suddenly, his body felt strange. The lower half was freezing like ice while the upper half burned on fire. Then came a wave of pain so sharp it knocked him out of his mind. His vision grew blurry for all to see. Anyway, it was too much trouble and lost cause. Maybe he's lucky as hell. He took a big risk and just saw what happened. Deso directly mixed two currents of air together while only hearing a cry that sounded even more tragic than before. But then something amazing happened. A moment your mind dismissed the pain as nothing more than a dull sting. But then it hit a wall. Those strange currents inside you weren't just physical sensations. They were the ancient, terrifying spirits that made this very thing happen. You felt your creator's power being struck down by something far greater than fear alone. This guy instantly rushed into the small town where the 5 elements had already started swirling through him, making this absurdity look like magic and showing he has no idea what's going on about it yet. As soon as his body adjusted automatically to circulate those 5 things in rhythm, the 3 methods of grasping yang and yin looked incredibly illogical all at once. This crazy thing is happening whether you're alive or dead right now. If this process doesn't happen just like that, he will turn into 2 currents, then jump straight toward your head. No matter what happens, it can't be stopped. It felt like a sudden explosion inside his head with a loud buzz, and Deso fell flat instantly. When your eyes finally opened, 3 days had passed without Peanut learning anything. This time, it was all for nothing. Suddenly, something strange began to move beneath your nose. It was a seed of the 5 elements being transported in rhythm. They also knew that talent belongs at the top and are ready to become strong like their father and grandfather together with the celestial demon. It was a bright day back when everyone was shining like stars, but then it got dark so deeply that Deso simply couldn't reach anyone to find him. He drifted off in the middle of nothingness before any other soul even knew about it. The 2 seniors stepped right into the room and instantly froze, shaking their heads in disbelief because it had never been like before. It wasn't just a casual visit. Clearly, they were here to see if they could prove anything about their own team's success this year. 2 brothers dragged him to a grand banquet, and now he's been eating since he woke up, making it impossible to blame them for his appetite without thinking about how much they've stolen from him. That action stopped the pair, and this man didn't even try to be polite while eating like a hungry ghost. I'm wondering exactly who that vice military advisor thinks is hiding behind him. He was only a little kid then, so when his mother suddenly grew very serious, he really wanted to ask an important question, but that guy just shouted that these dishes were too delicious and left both of them dumbfounded. He looked at those large chunks of meat and felt a sudden shiver run down his spine because he knew just how delicious it tasted, but he couldn't remember exactly what that flavor meant. For now, the little kid looked harmless, standing right next to the giant without a single ounce of real danger. Desesso was baffled by how his 2 brothers loved him, for he was known everywhere as something far more terrifying, cold as ice and venomous like a 3-headed snake. But immediately after that moment, he realized why 2 brothers had started the duality heart technique at the Wuhan Hawk Library so quickly. They were bragging about mastering the art a year ago, even though they only practiced it for trivial martial arts like this one. Deso felt something was wrong with his Danshin's growth and noticed that a new seed had already formed inside his body. The air felt cool and fresh right at his feet, while the view ahead promised to reveal hidden details even better than before. Is that the elder brother's deep stare as he watches him retreat, while the deputy strategist laughs with a sly smirk behind his back. I needed to figure out where that strange distance came from right now, so Deso dashed toward his father with hope in his heart, because it seemed the elder brother was already watching him too closely. He had to wait another minute while the other guy finally got ready. He stepped into the big room and felt his dad's scary energy shake his legs just as hard as he was shaking himself. I know Dad can be tough, but right now, it looks more like him taking off his clothes than anything else. My eyes kept scanning the elderly brother, thinking perhaps if I just worked harder, I might finally catch his pace, yet I couldn't see a single sign of progress on my part. As for the Namkung family, they seem to be so scary and intimidating at such a distance. If you want to survive, you must flee quickly and then watch your ancestor practice duality heart. When Nam Kung Dai watched you, he also noted that the great golden dragon was about to rise from the earth. So he suddenly snapped and demanded exactly what you needed. It was all a game of lying, so he could finally tell the truth. Together, let's grab this chance to tell the honest story behind our life choices. We decide to take a trip home, where we'll feed our pets with fresh fish and plant some yummy veggies in the garden to keep growing. Even though I can't seem to make a fight with anyone, even reading that book on the library shelf feels like it's making my brain explode right now. So my older brother is probably going to take over the head of the Namkung family someday. Dezo sat in his chair, staring at a man who laughed so hard he nearly broke his ribs. That same man had never touched anyone else's skin, and for him, it was the most important part of their life. Nothing ever scraped on his face. He pointed sharply toward the heavens and asked if that person must have gone to heaven or been some rich guy with a perfect life who did all this while working no harder than he did himself. Does that make your dreams look like they've never happened at all? His dad wasn't telling him anything because he was hiding from his own mother. He just needed to stay quiet so he could finally see her face. The dream he wasn't expecting was that his dad and son had the exact same vision. Although your child may be hiding a secret, I hope my father will bless his grandson and show him how hard it is to live leisurely. When the door burst open, Nam Kung Jan entered angry, boldly showing respect to his father while he asked you for abilities clearly. Dezo woke up startled by the sudden words from senior brother and was instantly amazed. Nam Kung Han stayed quiet while his two children laughed and cheered at what he heard. Finally, Dezo stepped closer to him. Nam Kung Han finally spoke up, asking why he felt so vague. Nam Kung Han didn't seem surprised, yet he gently reminded Dezo that fighting against each other means no one cares about a winner. It's already clear they will win. He showed this to his son, who was secretly thrilled and proud of the father's wisdom. But Nam Kung Jan still refused to give up, insisting on using several reasons to convince him. Nam Kung Jan was very serious about this and wanted to make sure he could beat the man on stage. The sound of the car engine cut through the quiet as he stepped out into the darkening night, and his eyes widened in disbelief. They could barely hold back a scream, caught completely off guard by the sheer force of it all. Nam Kung Jan asked me if I could lose to test the limits of my resolve. If yes, then any order he gives becomes mine. If no, I will declare him heir with all the faith in my own hands, even though both brothers look confident and eager to help. For me, this is a perfect chance to prove that I can handle anything without fear. But regardless of who wins or loses, I swear I won't let either side harm his brother. Behind Dezo was pulling out hair with deep frustration. How could he ever lose? Nam Kung Han nodded in agreement as he slowly tried to convince him. You know what? Nam Kung turned back and asked Dezo for his opinion. Dezo covered his face for a moment, tried to regain his composure by taking slow, careful breaths before speaking again. He told himself, calm down, thinking carefully that this time would seem like it had never happened. After a long pause, Dezo calmly reported Nam Kung Han answered his question with an uncaring tone. Dishonored, the older brother asked if you meant to say he's afraid of little sparrows while you were in the Grand Library 3 days ago. But he wasn't right. You weren't even going to send a maid out there to fight against them. Nam Kung Jan pretended to stroke his chin and thought, it seems I don't know what happened, do you? He didn't need to faint when hearing about it. Dezo exploded in rage because he knew exactly who had summoned the force for him already. Nam Kung Jan felt like he had aged 20 years. Yet his anger was still rising as he cursed at the foolish, do clench his fist, and swore in his heart before I killed you. The scene shifted back 3 days earlier, but Nam Kung Jan now looked as if he had already grown old and rubbed his forehead while lamenting how much the young lord kept busy with everything else. He angrily threw the book onto the table silently, complaining that pulling forces for everyone was too heavy to carry. Yet from cleaning the courtyard, wiping the stairs, and clearing the roof to trim the trees, did I really have to worry about every single little task? Nam Kung Jan was even more resentful than ever, feeling like all his work had piled up on him as a disciple. So now he bet the master was quite leisurely again, reading that book while I went from 100 steps to 10 times just for wiping them down every day. Suddenly, Nam Kung Jan's eyes snapped to a strange page of history, making him burst into laughter as he read through the stacks of books like an ancient scholar searching for something lost. The air felt heavy, and this calm man who had never been known for his anger suddenly stopped feeling the weight of everything. He laughed so hard that it made his face disappear from view. Instead, a sharp edge of malice appeared in his gaze, showing just how much burden he carried beyond ordinary limits. Before the young lord moves forward, I have to coax my military advisors into backing him up because they're just doing grunt work in a lowly noble family trying to get ready for a big fight. Every single person in that room holds a hidden wound from the world before them. They may have once been heroes or kings, but now they are merely ordinary, useless creatures with no future worth saving. Nam Kung Jan rubbed his head as he wrestled with the weight of Servant 49, knowing that while being a servant is tough, it's actually a powerful thing that no one can stop. True to your age? Yes, because thinking makes you feel like you're breaking things. So be careful and don't let those heavy thoughts weigh down on you. In a state of high spirits, he suddenly heard a rustling sound, forcing him to look down at the source of the noise. You need food to feel strong. Yet after the young master had already pushed you hard, Nam Kung Jan decided to head straight for the dining room before he could even take a bite. He walked out with an empty stomach and let's go first, knowing that hunger is just part of life. As he used his strength to knock open the door, he knew exactly what he would face inside. He stood still in that dark room, his heart racing as he tried not to let the music take over his mind, wondering just how old his sister was cooking up something new right now. I know exactly how much work we need to do for those tough older sisters. Nam Kong John is truly an asset as a deputy advisor, and his grin looks as though he's about to turn it into a victory with every move. It already smells like the best things happen when you're in charge. Did you cook that chicken tonight? He was full of excitement as he entered, clutching a small gift in his hand and cheerfully shouting, "Older sisters, I'm here." But what lay before him was something he could not accept. Nam Kung John widened his eyes in shock, exclaiming in extreme horror, "Since when did this place have another restaurant?" Countless people were sitting there, taking food from the meal prepared by the older sisters and looking up at him. Their gaze had no trace of goodwill. They stared at him like they had inherited a grudge from another world they never lived in. Nam Kong Jan nearly gave up on the gift as he stumbled into the room. Suddenly, a beautiful older sister rushed forward to grab his arm, forcing him to sit down for a moment before asking what had happened. Sister Shuang Yin asked what was going on, and Yin looked around at everyone sitting there happily, saying that they had worked hard. The aristocratic family always ate everything left over, so there wasn't enough food for anyone else, which the steward always treated like that. He got thrown into a corner of the table. "Please sit down, because the food will come up soon, and it's being brought continuously nearby." A maid was also heard talking while today they prepared a special dish. "Every day we have to transport weapons and do heavy work, so we need to eat well." The young man felt shy and thanked her. "The refined lady has treated us very kindly, but the other people told us not to be so polite. I'm just a maid named Leon," Yin speaking loudly from a distance while holding a small gift box, saying that I have prepared some light snacks while working. Several men praised her while eating because they were very satisfied with today's feast. Leaning in, "Oh my, it was indeed remarkable that those rare servants gathered together and received such warm goodwill. The older sisters were truly exceptional." Yet suddenly a large man appeared next to them. He walked over and sat down beside the group, which he did not forget to complain about. When the man saw Nam Kung Jan and jumped in delight, he shouted back at his master, "Oh my lord, what is so special about your appearance that makes you come all this way?" The deputy strategist stared at him with a face clouded by bewilderment, then remembered Nam Kung Jan was once again stunned when he saw the man greeting him. Perhaps the legendary master who once led Shaolin and swept across the Central Plains? After losing his arm, it's rumored he fled Shaolin in psychological shock. He stepped forward, slaughtering anyone who dared to block his way before vanishing without a trace. Now, at Nam Kung Jian's family, calmly tidying up the garden, he laughed loudly and politely replied, "I just stopped by for a meal." The food was delicious. Then he bowed and said, "The deputy strategist has only come here to eat. I think it is truly impolite to make a Sunung." Yin stepped forward, her voice full of anger. "You're standing in an empty room filled with people who've drunk all the wine, so why aren't they eating too much either?" Nam Kung Jan woke up startled by his own brother, who had suddenly turned mad at him for being too quiet. "Elder sister," he grumbled urgently, warning that a single angry look could turn the situation into a disaster if he didn't act quickly. He smiled nervously, thinking his foolishness was just making things worse. The girl already said she wasn't the type to get in trouble. Sun Ung Yin teased him and told him to eat another bowl before going home for dinner at night. Did the people here actually make him feel like he was floating in space right now? Sun Ung Yin softly smiled at the man, pointing out that his boss had something to say. The leader looked confused, shaking his head in disbelief as he tried to understand what the other guy was really asking for. Cheyenne clarified gently. When Leonine got into trouble with some thugs while buying food, it was Sun Ung Yin who managed to keep everyone safe by cooking a delicious meal for him. She added that the boss would think your strength is incredibly formidable and normal people often struggle standing still when dealing with trouble. The man blushed at her words and shouted, "Exactly." Did anyone else hear her whispering something interesting while everyone else was listening quietly? Sun Ung Yin winked with a grin and laughed so loud that the air felt like sunshine for everyone around them. The rest is a secret. The old man sank into defeat as everyone else laughed and mocked him. He knew it was an insult to someone who holds power. His anger flared hot in his chest and rose to his fists, but then the manager pushed through the crowd from behind him. Old Uncle was calm as everyone ate heartily, but he didn't let the noise bother them anymore. He gave a guest an extra chicken leg and told the others to wait until then. That morning, Nam Kung John opened his eyes to new experiences. The servants looked like martial artists who weren't afraid of him. So obedient they were sure he had none. If the master saw these ladies, it might just make him faint. Nam Kung Jan thought, "This is a perfect opportunity People called a dragon once, a monster again, and then a king. Seeing that 50 people gathered together to eat heartily, he counted them as an army size. He felt worried. Those unable to go together were just enjoying the meal and receiving gifts. The group laughed joyfully while a manager happily called out, "Miss, this stew is so delicious, I can't leave." A fat man beside him slurped down loudly, saying some had never tasted it, and others. Nam Kung Jan took a deep breath and locked his fingers tight on the table, as if something terrible was about to happen, knowing he could never miss this perfect chance for the day. You were telling your old friend, "Hey, I'm thinking of creating a mighty army myself and bringing it home right here. Don't worry about what the people in front have to do. They'll be there soon with their strength to show you exactly how strong they can get. It's time to act." Nam Kung Jan confidently raised his voice like a bird singing, presenting nobility, but with a prepared script. Nam Kung Jan laughed loudly. "Ladies and gentlemen, here, the assistant strategist of Nam Kong has something to say to you. I know your past very well." 8-Ton just picked up a piece of meat and put it in his mouth. He stared hard at the assistant strategist with a wary look, knowing he had come for something specific. Nam Kung Jan warmly shook everyone's hands while whispering in his heart what they all thought about him. His face turned serious before I spoke to you all and asked you to be the young master of your own self. He was holding up a high, unnecessary tension as we waited for him to step forward and say sorry that I had the wrong person. Then suddenly he laughed, his eyes dark with secret anger, and whispered in a low note of pure determination before snapping off into silence. "We are not worried about martial arts anymore." Nam Kong Jian didn't even hide his shock. Then everyone laughed as he calmly told them to find another place for the strategist. He instantly made a serious move, and a scary smirk spread across his face. "Why come in Nam Kong and run errands here? It's not true that you're jumpy." Some elders looked confused at each other, while a man couldn't keep calm because the noise was too loud. The atmosphere became tense as everyone bowed their heads in shame, feeling humiliated by such a miserable loss. Nam Kung Jan was stunned. 8-Ton still didn't forget that day, but he and Nam Kung Han fought against one another. He remembered the sword from back then and spoke in fear while stuck within it, sighing helplessly before snorting softly. His mind raced as he spotted the figure in the shadows behind him. Yes, it was scary when Nam Kung Jan stepped in front of him like he'd been sent by a ghost, but now my master shadow is too big and annoying. The real story isn't about ghosts or magic. It's about breaking the sword we've been stuck with all along. As a strategist, you need to figure out how to do that. Nam Kung Jian stepped forward in front of the three elders, apologizing for his mistake and promising to leave at once. While he was speaking, the gift box he had brought along vanished into thin air, leaving him alone with a feeling of deep regret. He left boldly, knowing that the world's leader would never easily retreat from the situation. Nam Kung Jian thought to himself, the world's #1 leader couldn't easily give up. There must be another way. He saw his loyal deputy sadly walking away while leaning in to urgently call him about it. Right now, action beats words when everyone is ready to speak. He hit the victim hard and said, "Yes, this urgent matter demands I leave first," his face stern as he stepped away. While the elder sisters wanted sympathy, Ian felt sad but knew they couldn't finish eating yet. "You still have more to do before dinner ends." Nam Kung Jian slammed the wrapped gift into Lin Yin's lap and whispered, "It's nothing here. I can't say much, but please accept my real gift." Just as Lian Yin wasn't ready to react, she watched the deputy strategist walk away in a somber mood at night, making her heart ache because he looked so sad. The little girl ran out of the house and found her friend sitting at the table staring blankly while an elder man chewed up a chicken leg like it was his own dinner. Big brother and uncle heard about the deputy strategist, who was eating while looking at her innocently as he shook his head. Nothing special except that they had rejected the proposal before he could finish his sentence. A cold gust of air rushed in from behind. Elder 8 was startled when a delicious bowl of soup suddenly lifted angrily from the table. Yayan let out a sharp breath and suddenly changed his face from his usual smooth look into that wild, messy grin of someone who was too scared not to be happy. The woman threw her head back and yelled, "Why was he so afraid? I thought he'd be okay." Then she stuttered. "Look." Leon Yayan turned that mysterious box open and looked around as a dozen sparkling pearls appeared like real gold, each one a perfect gift every time he served a guest. Batten's eyes sparkled like he had just found a treasure as he gazed longingly at what was hidden in the girl's hand. It felt so gentle, yet for such a small matter, it must be something very simple. Batten kept apologizing to everyone, saying sorry again and again. Gradually, people began noticing that strange object in his hand. They were also drawn to that mysterious thing. The person who recognized the treasure immediately ran over excitedly, shouting, "Isn't this Thinyaden?" A curious man interjected, asking what was so frightening about it. The other person angrily replied, "So foolish. Don't you know how precious it is? There are a total of how many pills that great immortal has spent a lifetime creating? One of them is the Anadon, which removes impurity from the body. At least you must reach the realm of bone transformation to seize the fetus. But just by taking this Thanyudan, you can completely cleanse her." The second one walked by and spoke softly about how tired she got from everything. Last time she brought something much better than this, but now it's just another old name. Her friends laughed nervously as Tuan explained his internal power to them with a dramatic flair, while the air in the room suddenly grew heavy and tense. The family members gathered around the table, whispering how deeply fallen Su had shaken their reputations with his mysterious influence over the Namkang line, causing even the most cautious maid to feel a sudden thrill and be tempted by the precious gifts he offered. Rumors quickly swept across the room, making anyone who heard them think it was a dangerous opportunity that could only bring bad luck if they didn't act fast enough. Nam Kung Jan leaned against the doorframe with a cool smirk, his eyes scanning inside as if checking on a friend who might be failing in their game. Dezo stepped out from behind a massive tree with surprising speed. Suddenly, an older man with lightning-fast reflexes slashed back at him, causing the branches to shake violently and sending Dezo flying into the air. In the blink of an eye, 3 trees were neatly trimmed by the old man as he landed behind Dezo. The gardener looked at his boy and asked if it was necessary to be so overbearing just for trimming trees. Mang turned to look at the boy, saying nothing. At this moment, Dezo realized and asked, "Does the old man know martial arts?" Mank replied calmly, "I must know." Dezo laughed loudly, pointing at him, not skilled at all. Manong was stunned into silence. "What? You're right that the Tai Chi Sword King looks like a martial artist, but Mank has to admit his anger was way too intense for such an art form. He also felt his own sword tremble with every breath as he shouted at Dezo about someone else's great master. Kid asked him gently why the legend of the Wong sect leader was disappearing after Nam Kung Han defeated him, and Mank stared back coldly, realizing how far he had fallen from that very place. He didn't get fired after that fight because it hurt so badly that he decided to be very serious about his anger instead of acting like a kid who just made fun and then walked away. Manong quietly lowered his eyes in a dazed way, as if he were Wong himself. It had been too long since anyone from this sect would have dared to challenge the old master's teachings. Deso gently pulled his hand back into a blade shape, whispering softly about how to trim trees without getting clumsy or injured, though Manong didn't pay much attention because he was lost in his own world. This small yard shouldn't allow for ruckus, especially when dealing with an arrogant kid like the youngest son of Namkang. As Deso bid farewell and left, Manong suddenly called out, "Wait a minute!" Dezo sighed as he looked at the world around him, wondering why his martial arts feels so awkward, before realizing clearly that they were just clumsy to begin with. Mank sat staring at the pristine green leaves and didn't believe his eyes when he spotted them. The line of trees stood so neatly that the grass felt a bit rough to walk on, so I asked where the clumsiness came from. So there's no missing piece in the big tree, and Mank keeps asking to see it. Isn't this neat? Dezo nods happily, confirming that the work was done perfectly, and they are both relieved. He felt so angry that the dark shadow in his own face grew bigger, and important words had to be said once before anyone else could hear them again. Dezo watched, stunned by the silence, while the young boy stared at the trees and felt empty inside, wondering why the world seemed so far away when his family was right there. Mank stood on a cliff overlooking a jungle, shaking his head as he saw how every branch had fallen onto the ground, though this slight tremor actually made it look much healthier from outside. He argued that in nature, strong trees would naturally fall and let their roots reach out to catch falling leaves, but humans don't want those branches to break down themselves. Even insects and birds can use these specific spots as hiding spots or food sources, yet the Nongong family only allowed human pruning because they believed it was essential for the tree's survival and growth. Dezo laughed softly as he asked, "What if everything were fair?" Mank replied, "Then wouldn't it be great if everyone lived well equally?" Dezo tried to hold back a laugh, wondering if the competition was really coming back. Ah yes, when the magic order finally began to take shape, millions of vulnerable souls had to give up their lives for it. That's exactly what happened then. Manang's eyes briefly lost focus, as if he hadn't anticipated a kid thinking that hard about everything. Dezo calmly continued, explaining clearly why removing weak elements helps keep everyone safe by creating order. She pointed out that in a normal magic spell, there is a hidden secret move before you start. If all 3 parts of the spell were hidden mysteries, nothing would happen at all. In the quiet pause of thought, mankind had to wait for the chance to speak again, knowing that if they did not act now, their clever trick would vanish from use forever. She looked down and realized she was repeating the action. He nodded in agreement. That's right. Then Dezo quickly showed off several fluid moves, weaving false ones, and cutting through the redundant parts so smoothly it felt like a secret technique he'd practiced for years in front of a senior. The fiery energy flared up around him, and suddenly the path before him glowed with brilliant light that illuminated the whole garden. Manong blinked, captivated by Dezo's presence, feeling suddenly small against Dezo's towering arms, as if facing something far greater than he could handle. Just a glance would have made him realize the mystery he'd long cherished. It was enough to sense the ancient aura of Tai Chi from the prune branches. Dezo focused intently on that tree, while Manong widened his eyes, his breath starting to quicken. Before I lost, Nam Kung Han said something similar, telling me how long it took to truly understand what he meant. Who would have thought I'd hear such a line from this kid today? Could the answer really lie when the doctor stepped up to Dezo? He looked so fierce that even a stranger knew exactly where they stood. Kid, I've been staring right at your eyes since you left the room. Laihan grabbed Dezo and dragged him forward like a maniac, but the doctor's shout echoed loudly as he made his way to the edge of the field. Hurry up, he barked, needing someone with an actual heartbeat. Dezo groaned repeatedly because he was too tired to move, racing toward where he knew everyone else was heading for their sleep. Manong stood alone in the dark, watching them vanish into the forest. He watched his hand twitch away from the tree stump beside him, thinking that having done a bit of climbing had been absolutely overboard with his mind and heart. Suddenly, a voice came out loud and asked, "Who are you standing up to?" He turned back toward Laihan, looking confused about what was happening. A weary man stood before an old healer who looked almost too young to be him. He didn't know he'd met this doctor until suddenly Mank spoke up, revealing an answer he'd been waiting for. Just as Ta held back a deep breath, Dezo fell asleep soundly on the bed while Li Han sat beside him, watching the scene unfold with a mix of wonder and concern. The healer's bones healed, his bleeding stopped, and he was finally living a comfortable life without worry. A miraculous gift that even a divine doctor couldn't have known was just a temporary illness until it was fully fixed by heavenly intervention. Dezo anxiously asked, "He's been sleeping continuously for 2 days. Could something really be wrong?" Lin calmly replied, "No, he's still healthy." But suddenly a strange scent filled the room. Laihan took a deep breath and froze, immediately wondering if it was Qing Yadan, which isn't suitable for her job as a maid. "You remember that famous actress?" "Yes." I felt incredibly exhausted after 2 long nights of sleep, and as soon as I left the library, my body immediately demanded a walk, a journey from one place to another that made me feel so tired even after sleeping for days. But Dezo didn't expect to find a shadow hiding behind a rock while he watched his own actions. Suddenly, rustling leaves made him stop in his tracks. He sensed something odd and looked around, finding Uncle Tun slowly stepping out of the bamboo forest with pride. "Very good. You can recognize me now." Dezo stared at the man, his breath hitching as he suddenly felt an ice-cold chill that made his heart race. It wasn't just cold, it was truly terrifying. The stars don't seem far away if we were closer than they look right now. Uncle Tun laughed as he watched Desmond sleep in his bed, telling him that no matter how far away he came from, he would never say a word about what happened to the maidens or her sleeping days until now. He gently patted the chair and told Desmond to sit down to ease his tired legs, making sure not to wake him up. A curious stranger stood there as the wind rustled quietly, leaving everyone to watch the clouds drift by while he shared a quiet moment with his uncle who seemed far too old for his age. He relaxed completely on the big bed while laughing loudly, but Uncle Tun immediately stood up to explain his frustration. Instinctively, he coughed out air and admitted, "I'm a good martial artist," before asking how he does compared to his father. Tun blushed rudely, saying, "Except for him." Du laughed, then explained jokingly that he was just kidding about beating the old man badly last night. The boy hugged his arm while crying quietly, and Tun admitted, "I once fought against your father and lost badly." He awkwardly patted his head and began to cry, trying to wash away the sadness of losing an arm by shaking his head so hard that his eyes rolled back in tears, silently falling down as he felt a heart full of indescribable emotions. Surely he has gone through many hardships. Tun nodded as he picked up his nose, then suddenly grabbed Dezo's hand, feeling a surge of doubt. Could this kid with that tear-streaked face be hiding in the southern clan to seek revenge? Tun felt embarrassed, flushed, and looking away, not daring to look directly. Then, Dezo had an idea. If you really want revenge, there's only one way. "Hey, Tun." Tun remained uninterested but asked curiously first, "Asterisk, what way is that?" Asterisk, his brother smirked as he realized that if this kid was young but really cheeky, he could defeat his father without anyone resisting age. "That way is it. If you live to be 130 years old, then you can defeat my father. No one would resist the old man. Dezo pretended to ponder, looking up at the sky, advising Batten should give up. If you give up, you will feel more comfortable than usual. He thought that regression could achieve everything. But whether you should go back and prune those trees. They were turning into an immediate danger. But suddenly he stopped, bursting with fiery energy as a golden beam of light appeared around him and roared loudly. He spent 15 years studying something so simple. Dezo was almost scared enough to run away from the threat. He felt so angry that he could see his power explode with every single second passing. He was suddenly a blazing red fire that made his heart race, and as he whispered, "Don't let it burn out," he saw 8 people shining with bright light around him. Dezo stood slumped against the wall, clutching his chest as if he were carrying an invisible weight of immense, supernatural power that made him look far too small for this massive battlefield. He thought to himself, that kind-hearted Shaolin monk has such a powerful gift of giving. He smiled as he walked away, letting the question from Dezo fill him with wonder. Did you really learn those techniques from Shaolin? Amitabha chuckled softly and nodded in agreement. You were told to tell your deputy a secret message, but if you're still here and can get through it, then I'll take my chance. After the heavy robe slipped off him and he walked away, saying he'd go ahead, Dezo remained stunned, rushing back to ask, "Are you planning to seek revenge on my father?" He wondered if they could just let everything pass quietly while watching Atone's determined face. Dezo scratched his head, knowing it was time for an answer. 8-Tone vanished from the sky before Namkung Han even spoke, leaving only a whisper echoing in his mind as he looked up at the stars, wondering if there would ever be another future. He thought about what that vice strategist wanted to take revenge for when it came to him, and then he saw Mank stepping beside him with an expression full of curiosity. Gentle Tone gently asked me, "Did you meet your young master today?" I nodded and laughed loudly, confirming that yes, everything is right at this very moment. The two of them walked forward confidently into the enemy's auditorium, where Mang said, "Come on, let's go." As they stood, the invisible chains of the Namkong family, head firmly attached to them, felt like a promise for 15 years. Mongkong and 8-Tun-1 walked in proudly to meet Nam Kung Han, who spoke with confidence. "A decade has passed since our last meeting here like this today, so I come to challenge you." Mang made a request. "Buddha of infinite virtue, can we join forces?" Slowly, his cold voice rang out. "All right, if it's the two of you, then you have the qualifications to challenge me." He gathered his spiritual energy with great authority, ready for action. Mank stood tall and firm against every wave of pressure. Yet when he looked at me, I was just a small tree pruner trying to save my own skin. Yet no matter what happened or how much determination I lacked, I am still a martial artist ready to go out there and challenge you. The Tone also spoke up, asking why the situation had changed so dramatically. Nam Kung Han's eyes filled with surprise as he realized that we were both different people who had learned new ways to fight against everything. Tone glanced at him as he replied, "If we win, I will tell you why." Nam Kung Han laughed loudly, his voice full of enthusiasm. The three of them charged at each other, their energy surging. A wave of light and death seemed to rush through the auditorium. The explosion shook everything, and when the smoke cleared, Mank and Eaton had gone, leaving 2 deep holes. Outside the corridor, Nam Kung Han watched with interest as they took a hit. They were already beaten to a pulp, their limbs torn apart, so much pain that they couldn't stand up. Then Nam Kung Han asked softly, "So what is the reason?" Manong laughed heartily at the question. The family's new generation has changed too much for anyone to keep up with. Yet a young man named Nam Kung Han still tried his best not to understand why his son had suddenly asked questions so gently while looking down at the room where the sisters were. "We've just like you," he muttered. He immediately thought of his son and began to whisper quietly, wondering if it would be okay now that their internal injuries had healed. Nam Kung Han slowly lowered his arm as he realized perhaps he had changed. As the house fell silent for a moment, Mon Kong and Tone collapsed unconscious in front of them, completely unaware of what happened next. More interesting things are happening right here at the back of the mansion. The next morning, Dezo sneaked into the small room where the sisters were. "What are those sisters doing?" he asked. Lin Yan was startled and turned around as soon as she saw him. Dezo stepped out onto the porch and walked slowly toward a patient lying in a dimly lit hospital room. His eyes suddenly widened when he recognized the 2 familiar faces. "Why are you 2 here?" Mong Kong and Eaton covered their faces inside. Nam Kung beside them also noticed something unusual, clapping his hands in praise for the fact that both had survived and returned. Manon glanced at him, feeling frustrated as if he wanted us to be dead. Deso, somewhat fearful, stepped back. "Now I understand, you 2 didn't go looking for death, did you?" The 2 of them stammered. "Well, it's true, but it really is quite fortunate. Leaning slowly approached, surprised, and asked, "Do you know them, young master?" Diso looked at the two and nodded. "Yeah, let's say that's the